Greetings and salutations, all you beautiful individuals. My name is Eric on that Millennium Falcon going Han Solo for today's episode as we, number one, have the LPL in full swing. So we're going to do a little bit of power rankings for a messy looking split three, even before we had games over in the LPL. But before we get to any of that, it's a little bit of LCS news. Right before things are kicking off, we are learning that your boy, the pride of North America, Inspired, will not be with Lyon Gaming for the first couple of weeks of the summer split, and that sounds like an absolute disaster on paper. Oh my god, their best player, the best player of the league, it's all doomed. It sounds, number one, okay, Inspired saying he has some things to deal with in Poland, nothing too serious, totally understandable, especially when you talk about the burnout that was just EWC from MSI right into winning summer. I feel like more guys should be taking breaks like this, and well, there's a certain fella in the LPL who might be taking breaks for a different reason, but we don't know. But Inspired, not with the squad for the first 3 weeks. Armeo, yes, that's Grig from the TSM days, will be taking his place in the starting jungle spot. Absolutely insane. You probably don't even remember that he's been playing professionally still. Doesn't really matter, truthfully, what the results are for Lyon through the first 3 weeks. They can come in as a whatever seed heading into playoffs once Inspired does eventually return, and they will be absolutely fine. We've heard, maybe understandably, he gets a little bit bored during the regular season, especially within the LCS, where competition is perhaps not quite as elite as you would get on the international stage, which he's had the last couple of weeks now, or last couple of months now, I should say. So really nothing to be concerned about if you're a fan of Lyon. This is par for the course and will probably actually end up being a more positive thing in the long run for the squad to have a fresh, rejuvenated Inspired who's been on the sidelines to also maybe monitor how wacky the meta is getting, although it hasn't been wacky for jungles, really. More so some of this bot lane action, as again, we will get to, because we already have games going in the LPL, and not even just from the bottom tier Scrubby W squads. The big boys already on the Rift, less than a week for sure, a few days removed from participating at the Esports World Cup. BLG and GDG both on the Rift today back in China. And I'll tell you, even before we've played some of these games, coming into this split, maybe the most suspect LPL region that we've had in a long time. Yes, BLG are great, but not short of their dramas. Again, get to that in a minute. But the idea of sending 4 of these teams to represent the LPL at Worlds this year, usually it's the LCS. I'm hard-pressed to come up with 3 teams I'd be confident with representing. It's tough right now to think of 4 LPL teams that you're confident, even 3 LPL teams that you're confident in sending. So definitely going to need some leveling up from the region as a whole, and especially those teams not named BLG heading into this one. And as we begin looking, we're going to do a 10-1 power ranking. Billy Gaming are still, of course, at the top of that table, and that's even with this new Bin drama that maybe isn't drama at all. He's going to be missing a couple of weeks, much like Inspired, but there's been some stuff underneath, nothing confirmed. And if you recall how things were kicking off 2026 with Bin packing his bags, ready to leave, there's always seems to be some drama rolling around him, but maybe not getting along with some players who shall not be named, and perhaps parents even getting involved and clashing a little bit. Who knows what the deal is actually going to be, when Bin is going to return, but it was Wenbo starting for them against Thunder Talk. He had a decent debut in the LPL, and I mean, really, you don't have to do that much on this BLG squad because it's so unbelievably stacked, because Jun is playing at such a high level right now alongside On, and there has also been rumors that maybe Flandra is going to be a signing that BLG has, which honestly, having a weak side top laner when you have Knight and Viper actually doesn't sound too bad, especially now with this meta of AP carries going absolutely hog wild, getting out of control. The Xerath bot has already been played twice in the LPL. We've only had 4 series, guys. 50% of the time we're getting a Xerath sighting, which never thought I'd be around to be seeing that become an actual meta pick. But the rest of the boys, San's been looking pretty good for BLG. And again, it's going to take something borderline miraculous for any of these other LPL squads to kind of take the mantle away from them. Even if I see BLG going on a losing streak and somehow not getting the first seed when we end up heading to playoffs, they're still going to be the favorites. They've got enough of a precedent and a very, very, very long leash, even with this potential bin drama, to be the best team in the LPL. But if the bin stuff doesn't get sorted out before Worlds, well, then you're throwing around a whole lot of question marks for this squad heading to another international event, with the Golden Road already being smashed by Hanwha Life. Just barely, though, in that 5th game. But still, lots of question marks around what is going to happen with bin. When you look at some of the other squads, and this is where it really gets tough, as I've said, outside of BLG, you're going, okay, who's ready to step up? We already had some roster moves for these other top contenders. Zhuo came back to top esports for Feng Yue, replacing him, which makes absolutely no sense when you have this rookie just perform so unbelievably well in Split 2. So I don't know what top esports is doing there. That combined with the big bow out that they just had at MSI, losing to Team Secret Wales, and yet still, here sits top esports as the 2nd seed, heading into this, well, not heading into now, beginning this summer split of the LPL, and they continue to be a two-faced demon because they look completely different domestically versus internationally. They are not helping themselves beating any of these international fraud allegations that have been their way since what now, 2023, maybe even go back to like 2020 during the Night era on top esports. But here they are still as the 2nd squad on this list, and I mean, Jackie Love, Tien, and Cream all continue to play at a high level. Jueon is delivering as a rookie, so even sending top esports to Worlds because of the caveat that we just talked about, you're not exactly feeling confident. And when you look below them, these are the squads that are supposed to be excelling, skyrocketing ahead of squads like top esports. When you talk about JDG and Anyone's Legend and AL, I mentioned Flandre potentially assigning for BLG. That's because he's no longer with Anyone's Legend, as Breathe comes in as their starting top laner for split number 3, which it remains to be seen how integral Flandre was just beyond his individual top lane play in terms of team environment, team atmosphere, communication. He's obviously a big veteran, but just individually straight up 1v1, I think you're saying Breathe is a better top laner laning phase and beyond. So we'll see. We'll monitor how this is for AL. The bot lane was definitely the main issue throughout playoffs and all of Split 2, so that will remain. But the reason neither of these guys are ahead of a top esports that we're not confident in is we just got the head-to-head right away. JDG versus AL, and what do we get? A 55-minute triple Elder Dragon throw fest that nobody wanted to win, was sloppy across the board, and even though AL was winning the game eventually, boy, really the only guy I'm giving a passing grade is Honkyu on the Mel. He was absolutely doing everything within his power to try and steal this game over for JDG. And I mean, Shanks not only gets a pentakill, this is the first game of the series, guys. Not only does Shanks already get a pentakill on the Silas to win game 2 for AL, and then we go into this 3rd game, which is just an absolute mess. And I wouldn't be surprised if we don't have a game longer than this one. We've already had top esports getting like almost 2 kills a minute in their opener, and then JDG and AL 55 minutes here. Nobody wanted to close it out, and I'm supposed to have confidence. Like, these are the world's teams? AL, JDG, the main frontrunners, contenders to be at minimum a top 4 team in the LPL. That's still where they sit, but confidence is not high for either of these, especially when they just had a little bit of a suspect playoff performance, especially the JDG side of things. So, like, I don't even know what the step up needs to be. This JDG roster, like, on paper, should be good, should be really good, should be easily consensus the second best team in the LPL, but we're waiting for some guys to step up to the level that Honkyu has been putting forward, and right now it just absolutely has not been there. And this, I know it's only week 1, the first split, things are getting figured out, but these guys were both playing like 3, 4, 5 days ago at EWC, so it's not like there should be that much rust when you were just on the Rift a very short time ago. Right behind AL and JDG are, of course, the Cinderella story of the spring playoffs. That is World Elite, and really the question we're looking at here is, was that a flash in the pan? Was that just exactly what I said, a miracle Cinderella run through those playoffs? Can you back it up now that you're on that upper half, the winning side of the LPL groups, the Ascend group? I can never get these right, but you know, the winning side, not the Fries group or Nirvana as it is in the LPL. Can you compete with the big boys day in and day out? I know they were already there and went basically winless before turning things around in the playoffs, but let's see if we can get some step up outside of Monkey to perform. And you know, like, again, look at this bottom half of the board. It's wide open for teams to potentially be going to a world championship. That's why even behind World Elite, a squad like Thunder Talk, you can legitimately talk about being in that conversation. We saw them go head-to-head against BLG. There's a lot of new faces on this squad, and, you know, Feather showcased he can play well, but really the guy, maybe it's because he was opposite of Wenbo, but Keshi for Thunder Talk had a fantastic series. He's solo killing Knight, doing absolutely looking like a Korean Jace in that matchup, and there's no reason, I think we might be seeing squads like AL and JDG be pushed by the likes of World Elite, Thunder Talk, these squads that made at least a little bit of noise in playoffs, and I think we kind of brushed over how crazy spring playoffs were. Now that we have squads like IG and Weibo hanging out in that Nirvana group because they got absolutely dumpstered in these playoffs or the past playoffs, by these play-in level squads that it was equal parts leveled up and disappointment out of these veteran squads in the LPL. But there's no reason Thunder Talk and World Elite can't push, maybe even surpass squads like JDG and AL, because they have been far from world beaters of the past that we've seen out in the LPL. Speaking of these disappointing squads hanging out in Nirvana, IG and Weibo, like this whole top 10, some of these squads could be making world. IG and Weibo are still better than a couple of bad playoff series were. And I mean, they have a long journey ahead. But of course, as has been much hyped up heading into this third and final split of 2026, the Prodigal Son returns. The Shy is back for IG. It sounds like Rookie will also be back. So maybe there's a little bit of magic for Invictus Gaming. And it feels like even last year, IG kind of the dream of a 4th seed at Worlds seemed so far-fetched and difficult. And yes, they'll have to win a lot of games. They have to fight their way out of this Nirvana group to get back to the main stage. But you tell me it's not easier than it's been in years past, for all the reasons I just went through, where it's completely wide open outside of BLG. On a good day, you don't think IG could beat this version of Top Esports? Probably. Definitely AL or JDG right now. So the Shy stocks might go to an all-time high if IG... I expect them to dominate this Nirvana group. They're going to be tested maybe against Weibo, like this squad with Elk, Xiaohu, Zhui, Junjia Zika. They shouldn't even be in this bottom half. They should be way better than number 9 on a power ranking list like this. So both IG and Weibo, let's see if they can beat up on the lower tier teams for a while and then fight their way back. But listen, even squads like LGD and EDG here, they're no slouches. As much flack as I'm giving the top half of the LPL right now for not being that good, I will say the middle of it has definitely leveled up. It used to be maybe there's 5 teams that are really good and then the rest is kind of abysmal. Right now the middle tier of the LPL is actually at a pretty decent level, even when you get to the LGDs and EDGs. A lot of that is, of course, the playoff run that they got from last year. But, I mean, LGD's got Xiaoya and now Crisp coming in the bot lane for a little bit of veteran savviness. And EDG still has, similar faces from last year. But the middle of the pack in the LPL is at a much higher level than we have gotten in years past. So maybe there's some potential to make some noise, but really we're all banking on IG having a miracle run and being one of the 4 squads, maybe even Weibo as well. That's probably how things will end up playing out, as the circle of the LPL always ends up being Weibo and IG somehow finding their way to represent at a world championship. We do still have the LCS kicking off shortly in a few days with, again, no Inspired going to be playing there for the first few weeks. And the reason we didn't do a full kind of power rankings rundown in the LCS is it's kind of cut and dry at this point. It's really not that interesting. You pretty clearly have Lyon Gaming. I mean, maybe with Armeo in, you put them in the number 2 spot for the first couple of weeks, but they're still the best team in the LCS. And based on how things went at MSI and to close out the split, you're putting Team Liquid in the number 2 spot. Again, pretty convincingly. They leveled up, played well against Carmine Corp. That's EWC finalist KC, by the way, so even more clout for Team Liquid on that one. And because Cloud9 has now made these roster changes, I Will Dominate and Yamato are going to be your coaches. Loki is coming back. Sven is going to have splitting some time to tactical. Things are a little more complicated, and you kind of need to see the result on paper. So Cloud9 slides in the 3rd spot with the potential to maybe be 2nd, climb up a little more. Again, depending on how Lyon does the first few weeks. But the top 3 are obvious. You're not going to put anyone else above them, even if you're incredibly high on what FlyQuest can do and the potential can do. And I'm going to say right now, I think FlyQuest takes one of the spots at Worlds. I'm going to say it. I don't think this is the solution for Cloud9 to all of a sudden be a contender. I don't think maybe Team Liquid goes. Lyon should probably go. But I think FlyQuest sneaks in and takes one of the LCS spots to go to the World Championship. We saw the astronomical level of growth out of the young rookies in Split 2, where they were competing, punching up into that top 3. You heard all the teams, the big 3, praising them in scrims. And I know you don't want to hear the S word when you're hyping up a squad, talking about scrims and how they're going to perform. But I do think it's been so long since we saw FlyQuest on the Rift. They weren't at AWC. They weren't at MSI. It's been a couple of months. A fresh outlook, a full reset for a team that's so young. It's easy to get bogged down when you're in the thick of it for so long. You're kind of getting used to maybe routines that aren't good, that are actually hindering you more than helping you. So I think a full reset for these guys, they're going to come back even stronger. And I mean, you get to the bottom half of this list. Okay, Zazel's coming for Shopify. There's some investment in domestic talent, in Denethor for Team Dignitas, more time for Disguise. Surti's going to be the starter. There's some positive things to talk about for the bottom 4 in the LCS, 100%. And even, I mean, Dig, I think you're obviously easily putting in that 8 spot. Maybe there's some argument between Sentinels and Shopify, who you're feeling better about, and Disguise is kind of behind them. But for the most part, it's pretty cut and dry. I would say the most cut and dry of all the power rankings heading into Split 3, it is the North American one. So that's why we're not doing a full deep dive. But here we are talking about them. I think there's positives. If you're a glass half full kind of guy, there's positives you could talk about for every squad in the LCS. I mean, Sentinels obviously won the EWC qualifier. I can't even get through Sentinels and be too positive about them. I'm more positive about Shopify because Zazel's coming back. This is a guy who I still think shouldn't have been cut from a lot of these opportunities, but it's just a single round robin in the LCS. Remember, we've only got 10 teams. It's all best of 3. We're done with all the funky little gimmicks to try and make things where you're picking your opponent or the bottom teams pick teams they haven't played. All that kind of garbage type of stuff. It's just back to normal, best of 3. You don't need to do anything fancy like they've been talking about. So still excited for the LCS. And of course, we're going to have that El Clasico match. TSM versus Counterlogic Gaming at some point. And we've also got more LPL before the playoffs even kick off. How about AL, JDG, and BLG all being right back on the Rift as the LPL schedule, yes, it is quite insane. They're going to have Monday, Tuesday off, so that's something. But 3 series a day now for the weekend on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and it's a whole lot of BLG. 2 BLG matchups, and we're going to get JDG AL as well. Lots of marquee matchups to prove themselves. It is a long and tumultuous season in the LPL. It's a full month of action. That's just regular season. How many weeks of regular season? It's only 5 weeks, technically. But again, most of it is 3 series. 3 series a day, which no other league is even close to putting that number up. But with a messy-looking LPL, the LCK T1 dropping games, Gen G back in first stand. Before Worlds even starts, there's maybe a higher dose of hopium for Western squads than we've had in a couple of years. And I know me even saying that out loud is probably a curse for them going forward. But at the very least, like in Worlds Past, but even a higher level, we're feeling like you can push back against even some of these top teams. It was supposed to be the unbeatable LCK, and here G2 sits with best of 5 wins against both T1 and Gen G already on the 2026 calendar. But that is it today for League Unlocked. My name is Eric. Thank you to all you beautiful people for supporting us as always. You know we'll catch you on that flippity flip.